Welcome to Meatless Monday, everybody. Typically, we cook something here in the kitchen, and this guy who's a doctor talks about a medical topic, and I make something related to that medical topic. But
today we've got a treat.
We have a special guest with us. It's Glen Merzer, who is the best-selling author of previous books such as Own Your Health, with a lot of really good recipes by Chef AJ, and also Mad Cowboy with Howard Lyman, which I have to tell you, so a good friend of mine who's also a Food for Life instructor, her husband Joe read this book, and that's what made him stop eating meat. So there we go. We've got that. And then
you also helped somebody get famous, I think, right? Was it Leonardo DiCaprio or something?
I didn't really help him get famous, but I wrote on a TV show that he was on.
So you wrote the words that made his career. Is that what you're saying?
I guess that's hard to deny. Yeah.
Well, and this is the new book, Food is Climate. If you've been looking at our pages, you've seen this in flames. It's a flame-proof book, I guess?
Yeah, probably not. But anyway, okay.
I want to begin by just commenting on those wonderful shirts you're wearing.
Exactly.
I don't know where you got that, but that is the height of fashion. I wish I had one of those.
Yes, one of my fitness students, Rashad, thank you, Rashad, made these for us. And so I told him I would wear them on Meatless Monday tonight. So we are showing off our fashionable new T-shirts that have the cover of the book. I also wore it to the farmer's market the other day. So,
you get any comments?
I got some interesting looks by people, I think, wondering why I was wearing a book on my shirt, but I don't know. So, but yeah, people I knew said, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to order that," or "I already ordered it. I need you to sign it." So, yeah. So, and the reason that we are wearing these and that we have Glen Merzer with us tonight is since I'm a Food for Life instructor, and Glen graciously offered to have several Food for Life instructors have recipes in the book. So there's a section at the back of the book of all recipes and a section that has Food for Life instructor recipes. So I have a few recipes in the book, and I've also made one of the recipes already for us to show in a little bit. That's in the book. It's not my recipe. It is Brittany Giarrutti's recipe from the Giarrutti family, called Easy Bean Meatballs. And so I made them, and they are really good. And then I made my own roasted red pepper sauce. He's eating them now. I made my own roasted red pepper sauce, which is a bonus section of the book. So if you order the book and you would like the bonus section of recipes, then you go to, is it foodisclimate@gmail.com?
Just send an email to foodisclimate@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And send proof of purchase of the book, and I'll send you the bonus extra recipe file.
Excellent, excellent. So my recipe for roasted red pepper sauce is in the bonus section. So there you go. And the meat
have great recipes in the pages of the book.
Yes, there's
this roasted red pepper sauce is special, Glen. You're going to want to buy a book.
So yeah, it's
some good. Get it with the T-shirt, it'll be great.
Exactly. Hey, but look, if there's anybody watching this, meeting us for the first time, she's a Food for Life instructor, which means she's gotten certification through the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. She's also a graduate of the Cornell
Center for Nutrition Studies, and a certified plant-based chef. And I'm a certified fitness instructor too.
Certified by Ruby.
Yeah, Ruby School of Cooking. And then he is a doctor here in Montgomery, internal medicine.
Practicing primary care here in Montgomery, Alabama for the last 25 years.
Right. And we did this live in person at our local Whole Foods starting in January of 2017.
This meaning Meatless Monday.
Yeah, Meatless Monday Supper Club is what we called it.
You cooking food, me teaching a health topic.
Right. So, and Whole Foods was very gracious in supporting that completely by actually providing all of the ingredients, and everybody got to have samples, and it was really cool. And then the pandemic happened, so we had to stop doing it at Whole Foods. So we started doing this in our kitchen in March of 2020. So
and maybe we could start off with, I mean, my plant-based journey started in 2009 when I was hitting an age where I was starting to think about how neither of my grandfathers survived to age 60 or so. I think it's a few years longer than that, but died what was becoming to me to seem like young, since I was approaching that. And then around that time, this movie Forks Over Knives came out. And that really changed my life and showed me that was the path. Now, Carolyn started about 6 months earlier.
Right. I read the book Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer because I was just kind of fascinated in the topic of why do different cultures eat different animals and that kind of thing. And then the book mentioned the China study. And so I ordered a copy of that, which is very dry and sciencey. And I fell asleep, honestly, several times reading it. But it's a really good book. And I said, Brian, we have to change our diets. Read this. And then we watched Forks Over Knives, and he got on board too.
Wow.
So
yeah, after 6 months of eating what she made at home and eating whatever when she wasn't looking.
Right. So tell us about
so how did your journey start, and how did it evolve, Glenn?
Well, my journey was similar to yours, Brian, in that I didn't even know my grandparents. They were dead before I was born. My mother's two uncles died when I was a teenager. And my mother's two brothers, my uncles, died when I was a teenager. And there was so much heart disease in the family. Most of the men died in their 50s. I didn't want to be middle-aged at 25. So I decided I would start as a vegetarian on the first day of summer vacation when I was 17 years old, after my junior year in high school. I got up that morning and I had an English muffin for breakfast. And the phone rang. It was my old buddy Dave, and I said, "Congratulate me, I became a vegetarian." And he said, "Since when?" And I said, "Since breakfast." And he laughed at me, and I haven't had meat since. So,
that's good. So you said vegetarian. What did vegetarian mean to you?
Well, vegetarian to me meant not eating any meat, fish, chicken, any dead animals. And I think from the beginning I avoided eggs. But I had an obese aunt and uncle who were very, very concerned when they heard the news that I had gone vegetarian. They were very concerned for my health. And, they were each almost 100 pounds overweight. And, you want to say you're concerned about me?
Right.
Yeah.
So
I've been really impressed with how people get really skewed ideas of what normal is.
right.
But people have the deck stacked against them because our whole society is so much of it's structured to influence people to think that something's normal that just really is not.
Right. So they said to me, "Glenn, where are you going to get your protein?" And the first thing that popped into my head was from cheese.
Oh, no.
Cheese isn't a dead animal, or it isn't a little egg animal fetus thing. It's it's a thing that comes in a package. Cheese. It seemed harmless. So I said, "I'll get my protein from cheese," guessing correctly that there was protein in cheese. But sounded like a good answer. I'll get my protein from cheese. So I continued to do that for the next 19 years, I think it was. I continued to have a diet without any dead animals, but I would have cheese. And cream cheese, cheddar cheese, mozzarella on pizza. And then, and you're a doctor, Brian, so maybe you know what was happening to me. I still don't know. But in my early to mid-30s, about a dozen times, I got an electric shock around my heart. I would just be walking along, I'd feel a shock. It would practically knock me to the ground. It would be over in about 2 seconds, but it seemed like the beginning of heart disease. So, most people, if that happened to them, they would go to a cardiologist. I decided, let's think about this first. I'm not eating meat because I don't want to have saturated fat and cholesterol. But I'm eating cheese. And what is cheese? It's saturated fat and cholesterol. It's liquid meat.
It is liquid meat.
Yeah. So I gave up cheese after this happened to me about a dozen times, and it's never happened again. So that's what happened. I gave up cheese. I never had a symptom again. I never had a medical consultation on this problem until now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, you pushed a button.
It wasn't caffeine, I can tell you that.
Oh, good.
Because I've only had 1 cup of coffee in my life.
Oh.
Shall I tell you my 1 cup of coffee story?
Yeah.
I was 17 years old, the year I became a vegetarian. I think I had already been a vegetarian for 6 months or so. And I went to visit the college I would ultimately attend, called New College of Florida in Sarasota. And I felt like one of the grown-ups, I was a 17-year-old kid from Long Island, and now I was in Sarasota, Florida, with college students and professors, and I loved the feeling. And plus there was skinny dipping at the pool. It was terrific. And then there was a coffee clutch at the home of Professor Bates, who was the international relations professor. So I was invited there, and this was great. I got to be in this coffee clutch with the students and the professors. And then in front of everybody, Professor Bates called out to me, and I was in the back of the apartment, "Glenn, do you drink coffee?" And I had never had coffee in my life. I don't know. I was a kid. I never drank coffee. I grew up on milk and cookies. I never had. So she said, "Glenn, do you drink coffee?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Would you like to try a cup?" And I said, "Sure." So she gave me a cup of coffee, and it was the worst thing I ever drank in my life. It was like drinking mud. It was horrible. It was horrible. So I got like halfway through it and found a way to spill it out or something. And so I never had coffee again. But I went to that college. I graduated there. And about 10 or 15 years later, my literature professor was retiring. So I flew back to Sarasota to speak at his retirement event. When I was there, I met a young student there. And I asked her what she was studying, and she said international relations with Professor Bates. And I said, "Oh, is she still there? How's she doing?" And she says, "Fine, she is such a great professor, but she makes the worst coffee."
That's great.
Oh my God.
I never had coffee again. She said.
Yeah, I think it smells better than it tastes. I think it smells wonderful. It just doesn't taste. If it tasted as good as it smelled, it would be great. But anyway. Rashad, who made our shirts, is watching, by the way. So, hi, Rashad. Thank you for our shirts.
One of my favorite fashion designers.
Exactly. Rashad is a fashion designer. Thank you.
Hey, so we were talking earlier about how I had a busy day, and I wound up eating my lunch on my way driving home, right? And now, one thing I do in the car a lot is I listen to podcasts, and I was amazed. It was just last week, and I was listening to this podcast, and towards the end of the podcast, they had an advertisement, and it was actually from the meat industry, and they were advertising an extremely low contribution to global warming. That some institution had said, they were quoting, I think, the 14.5% number. I can't remember. I didn't realize what I was hearing until that I should play it again and get the details. But I think it might have even been a number lower than the 14.5%. But yeah, I know that I mean, studies have shown like 14.5%, 15.1%, 51%, 87% contribution to greenhouse gases by animal agriculture.
Right.
I mean, somebody hearing that advertisement, I mean, what would you say to them to try to help straighten them out?
Well, maybe we can dig out of the archives those TV commercials that played when I was a little boy that said something like 2 out of 3 doctors recommend Marlboro cigarettes for patients who smoke. You know, it's nonsense.
Right.
We have to realize that there are different causes of the climate crisis. I believe that the leading cause is animal agriculture by far. But also there's fossil fuels, you know, coal-fired plants and airplanes and gas vehicles and so forth. They also contribute to the climate crisis. But as we address the climate crisis, we have to ask ourselves, which of these things can we do without? What's the easiest problem to solve here? We don't have solar-powered airplanes. So if we're going to have an airline industry, we're going to be burning fossil fuels for the foreseeable future. And, you know, cars can switch more to electric. We don't really have, I don't think, yet very good large trucks that are electric. I think they may be working on that. But those 18-wheelers, I don't think you can find a lot of those being electric. And heating and cooling of homes, you know, most people use fossil fuels to do that. So there's a social good associated with a lot of fossil fuel use. We should try to move to renewables. We should try to cut down any wasteful uses of fossil fuels, but there's a lot of social good involved, for example, in the airline industry. You know, when you get to fly around the world and see your loved ones, that's a social good.
Right.
But with meat, there's no social good. There's no point to it. It harms the climate, it harms the water, harms the air, harms the animals, harms our health. So where's the social good? This is the low-hanging fruit. Let's stop doing the thing that is only negative. You know, there are, of course, good, well-meaning people who work in the animal foods industry. And, you know, were I to, you know, be able to control federal policy, and that's not likely to happen anytime soon, I would want to, you know, I would want the government to help these people transition. You don't want to throw them out of a career any more than when we transition out of coal, we have to retrain people who work in coal mines. So we want to be concerned about people's livelihoods. Nonetheless, that industry, animal agriculture, is just an industry with a lot of harms and no good. It does no good for humans who eat the products. It does no good for the animals. And, you know, sometimes we hear on the news that there's a bad batch of lettuce somewhere. You know, romaine lettuce has E. coli.
Yeah.
Romaine lettuce. Now, where does that E. coli come from?
Yeah, the cow
of an animal. There's a hint, I think, in the word coli. There's no colon in romaine lettuce. So how did romaine lettuce have E. coli? And the answer is it's always downstream of a cow farm or pig farm.
Exactly.
So even when lettuce is the problem, animal agriculture is the problem. It's always animal agriculture. We have a pandemic now. When was the last time we had a zucchini pandemic? You know, there's never been a zucchini pandemic. It's always a bird flu, swine flu. This one came from a bat, whether the bat was in a wet market or a laboratory. You know, and during the pandemic, they asked us to social distance. So we're supposed to be 6 feet away from other human beings. But meanwhile, all the animals are in, 20,000 chickens in a warehouse.
Packed in so close they can't
Yeah.
even sit down. They have to stand the whole time.
Yeah. So these animals are sick, and they're getting each other sick, and then they get us sick.
Right.
So animal agriculture is the cause of pandemics. It's the cause of heart attacks. It's the cause of diabetes and so many other health problems, cancer. It's the cause of antibiotic resistance. It's going to make your job harder, doctor, when we have antibiotic resistance getting worse and worse.
Exactly.
It's and now it's threatening our ability to breathe because it is the leading cause of climate change.
Do you think the average person is aware that there's been several occasions where chicken operations have had to be shut down because they had unusual and deadly strains of flu that started in the chickens and spread out to the workers?
It's not the kind of thing that gets a lot of airplay.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, Michael Greger.
And every time there's a story about romaine lettuce, I'll ask everyone listening to pay attention to this. Whenever there's a story about romaine lettuce with E. coli or tomatoes with E. coli, never once do they say on the news it's downstream of a pig farm or a cattle farm. But every single time, that's what it is because there's no such thing as E. coli in lettuce.
Exactly.
It doesn't come from lettuce. So every time, the problem is the animal operations. It's just not natural.
Is it true that E. coli, I'll ask you, is it true that E. coli is more often found in like fecal matter? Mm-hmm. So it would make no sense because lettuce doesn't poop. So it would be something that pooped upstream.
Yeah.
It's
in fecal matter. That's why women get urinary tract infections with E. coli so much.
Ew, that's gross. Okay, so switching topics. I want to talk about
It's fun to have a doctor in the room.
Yeah, whew, so much fun. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one thing I was wondering, and one of the questions that I get from people I know who shall remain nameless but might be watching, is since it seems like climate change is more related to large industries like the meat industry, the dairy industry, whatever. It's a large corporation kind of issue. How do individual people turn that ship? How can individual people make a difference when it seems like it's companies making tons and tons and tons of money doing this? How do we get them to stop doing this?
Right. Well, industries respond to demand. So, if everybody ate the way we did next week, the animal agriculture industry would fold next week. Right. So the challenge is trying to get everybody to eat the way we eat.
Right. That is a challenge. Yes. Especially where we live in Montgomery, Alabama. That's quite a challenge.
So we spoke with Glenn last night, close to bedtime, just trying to be sure we had a good link and this would work well today. So it was like close to bedtime. So all night I'm like, oh, climate change. Oh, and it couldn't. But I actually woke up realizing that it's a lot like diabetes. Mm. And the reason I say that is because I put together a talk for a local group about diabetes recently. And diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is all about fat clogging up the body's ability to use insulin. So the insulin can't work, so the sugar can't get into the cells. And you can totally turn around type 2 diabetes, at least in a lot of people, by eliminating the animal fat. Then the insulin can work, and then you can get sugar into the cell. But, a cell is teeny, teeny, tiny, 10 microns, like 100 of them fit in a millimeter, and 2,560 of them fit in an inch. How in the world can getting glucose into that make a difference? But it can make a difference because there's 30 trillion cells in the body, and that insulin story is operating in at least 15 trillion of them. And in the same way that turning on 15 trillion cells and getting them to do the right thing, if your work and other people's work can combine to turn on a few billion people to changing their behavior, we can take down climate change in the same way you take down diabetes.
Well, we have to, just like the getting rid of the fat allows the sugar to get into the cells, we have to plant trees to get the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'm not a climatologist. I just play one on in interviews. I'm not a scientist. But the fact that I was able to write this book is indicative of the fact that a lot of climate science is very accessible even to someone of ordinary intelligence. And so here's a central, simple fact about it. The molecules that are heating the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide and the methane and the nitrous oxide in the atmosphere, that's a cumulative problem. We're putting more and more of that in the atmosphere. We all remember, hearing that we want to have carbon dioxide not go above 350, and then it went to 375, and then it went to 400, now 410 parts per million. It's accumulating. Mm-hmm. And so the nature of this problem is that these greenhouse gases are accumulating. Now, how could the solution possibly be, let's slow down the rate at which they're accumulating? That's not a solution. The solution has to be, let's draw them down. Let's draw it down. Let's reduce it. And how do you draw it down? You don't draw it down by going from a car that gets 50 miles to the gallon instead of 30 miles to the gallon. That's not going to draw it down. You're just going to slow the rate of accumulation.
Right.
An electric car is better, but even in producing that electric car, you're going to burn some fossil fuel. So how do you draw it down? And the answer is trees. It's
more
just
trees. More trees.
The only way you can draw it down is trees. And we live on a planet that used to have 6 trillion trees, and now it has 3
burning
trillion.
them all down. Where is it? There it is. We're setting fires to all of them and burning them down.
Yeah. So we live on a planet that used to have 6 trillion trees, and now it has 3 trillion trees. It's the same size planet.
Right.
So it ought to have room for many of those trees, actually up to 3 trillion more to come back. But we just need, according to the math I did in the book, we need a trillion more trees. And where are you going to put a trillion trees?
Cow pasture.
You could put some of them in Montgomery, Alabama, and some of them in different cities. But you need the grazing land. The grazing land is more than 1/3 of the Earth's non-ice land surface. You just let the land reforest, let it rewild. Right. And over a couple decades, we'll get to that trillion trees. And that's how you reverse climate change. And nothing else makes sense.
Right.
But they won't talk about it, at the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or Al Gore and the other leading climate spokesmen. They only talk about fossil fuels because they know that you can't plant 1 trillion more trees unless you end animal agriculture.
Right.
They don't want to say that.
So you really call out Al Gore, Bill Gates, and Paul Hawken. Have you gotten any feedback from them or their camps?
I have not, but I'll be happy to hear from them if I ever do.
Yeah,
But,
sure. Yeah, I think it is kind of like what he was saying about diabetes in the body. If you just give your body a chance to heal and stop adding all the fat to it, your body will heal itself. The earth will do the same thing if we just stop cutting down and burning all the trees down for animal agriculture, grazing land, and let the trees come back, then the earth will heal itself if we give it a chance. I think really the problem with the earth is us. Like we're like a virus to the earth. Humans are the problem. So
clearly, I mean, one is crazy.
So in your mind, the biggest thing is the difference between how much carbon pasture land holds versus how much carbon a forest holds?
Yes, it's two parts to it. It's the land and the vegetation. The land will hold twice as much as the vegetation. But when you plant trees or allow trees to come back, that they will improve the soil. And so this, that combination of the vegetation and the soil is what we need. And what we have instead of that on the pastures, we have, as Carolyn was saying, they have pasture maintenance fires. And I was talking with Dr. Sandwich Rao about this. I asked him, do we know how many pasture maintenance fires there are annually? He said, they don't keep track of that. They don't want to know. But that image that you have on your T-shirts and on the cover of the book, the red is pasture maintenance fires. And that's a NASA image. So you see those pasture maintenance fires, and most of them border on the deserts. Well, this is not a new technology. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years to maintain their pastures. They basically burn down any trees or vegetation that the cows don't want to eat. So when we do this, we're degrading the soil. When we degrade the soil, it holds less carbon, and it blows easily into the atmosphere, and you create deserts. Now, show that image one more time of those deserts. No, the other side of the book. Look at all those deserts from the Sahara across to the Middle East, to northern India, to the Gobi Desert in China. That's 6,000 miles of mostly desert. And we've all seen that image all our lives, and we're used to knowing that there are deserts there. But I never really thought about it until I researched this book. Why in the middle of the world, why are there all these deserts? Was the earth created that way? Regardless of how you think the world was created, whether it was divinely created or just a natural process, why in the middle of the earth all these deserts? And the answer is that we know that those areas were forested. And they were forested as not that long ago in geological time, only 10,000 years ago, they were forested. So they didn't turn into deserts 1 million years ago or 2 million years ago or 500,000 years ago, just in the last 10,000 years. And what happened in the last 10,000 years? Agriculture was invented. So this is what we've done to that part of the world with agriculture. And if we keep doing it, we're going to do it to California and the American West and parts of Europe and all around the world. We create deserts with animal agriculture, with goats, with cattle, and with pasture maintenance farms. So this is something we have to stop.
Yeah, that kind of struck me this summer. I was teaching cooking classes to children at the YMCA. I teach cooking and nutrition classes at the Y in addition to teaching fitness classes. And I had 50 children this summer who came every Tuesday to a cooking class I did. And the very last class we did, I was trying to talk with them about fruit, specifically tropical fruits, and let them taste different tropical fruits. And I brought a big globe and said, what does tropical mean? And a couple of really smart little kids, this was kids between 5 and 12 years old. And one of the kids, who was probably 8 or 9, said, well, tropical means anything between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn running around the equator. And I said, well, you're right. And we started turning the globe and looking at what was tropical. And, it seems so odd that the Sahara Desert is like right in there. Why is that not tropical anymore?
So
that's a
what
problem.
was in the Sahara Desert? Would it be right to have referred to it as a tropical forest? Because we always hear that tropical forests are the most dense forests, the most rich, the most important, the most diverse. Yeah. Is that what was in the Sahara?
That's a great question, and you stumped me there because I don't know, but it would seem logical that might have been considered it.
Yeah, I'm stumped too, just because I know it has a lot to do with the amount of rainfall, and I don't know how that was there.
Well, but it should be technically tropical because it is near the equator. So
Yeah,
that was an odd one that the kids and I were looking at the globe and wondering, well, why is there a big desert?
and
right
more
there?
than a coincidence that it's referred to also as the cradle of civilization, the cradle of humanity, right?
Probably the cradle of
In that
agriculture.
area.
The cradle of our
You know, I don't say that animal agriculture was the only cause of that happening. There was apparently wobbles in the Earth's axis and other factors that scientists believe, but it was certainly one of the factors.
Right.
And there were articles in Science magazine and I think National Geographic that supported this case. So, and it's just, it seems almost undeniable when you think of the time frame in which this happened. It would be very, very unlikely that it's just a coincidence that it happened just when humans invented animal agriculture and started grazing land with goats.
Yeah. Seems like more than a coincidence.
Yeah.
So those seem to be a connection. So yeah, and I think the bottom line, I guess, is what we've been talking about with Meatless Monday, when we did it in person and doing it here in our kitchen, is eating more plants and cutting out meat and dairy is better for human health, but turns out is also better for the planet. And I know there's a lot of reasons people eat plant-based. And with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, we teach eating plant-based for human health, but there's also the reason of, people who care about animal rights and animal cruelty and then climate change. So yeah, those are to me the three big reasons. So your book actually is addressing all of those because you've got the healthy recipes in there too. So yeah, which are better for animals. And so that hits all three buttons in the book. So, and like we said at the beginning of the broadcast, if you were not watching at the beginning, if you order the book on Amazon and then you send Glenn an email at foodisclimate@gmail.com with proof of purchase of the book, then you get a whole bonus recipe section as well, because half of this book is really good recipes, which I want to show off.
You get roasted red pepper sauce.
And you get roasted red pepper sauce in the bonus. Yeah, that's a good bonus, let me tell you.
Boy, so I've heard you talk before about some articles that were in the Annals of Internal Medicine. And that strikes close to my heart because they have what's called an annual session, which is just a wonderful learning experience that I've really enjoyed going to. I've probably gone to like 5 of them so far.
Right.
And so I mean, you told the story better than I could about those articles and how they
I told that story in my book, Own Your Health. Held up before. In Own Your Health, I told the story of the insane paper that was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine called the Red Meat Papers. And I don't know if as a doctor you had patients come to you and ask you about it or having heard about it, but it got a lot of airtime because it was such a striking conclusion. That the paper, it was had I think a dozen co-authors, and the conclusion was continue red meat consumption as you've been doing. Don't worry about it. Just continue eating red meat. It's fine. Now, of course, that went against decades of established science. So naturally, I was curious how they came to that conclusion. Since we have a mountain of evidence, we have the same amount of evidence we have that cigarettes cause lung cancer, we have that eating meat causes heart disease. We know it for a fact. So how could they possibly say, in good conscience, continue meat consumption as you've been doing? So I read it. What kind of study have they done? Well, they didn't do a study. It was what they call a meta-analysis, and that's legitimate. There are studies that are meta-analyses, but that means that they didn't conduct a study. They looked at a dozen or more other studies, and they compiled the data and came to conclusions. And what they decided to do was set up a point system. Now, the exact number of points I haven't memorized. I'm gonna make up numbers a little bit as I do this, but this was the essence of it. They gave points. They made up a point system. These are professionals. They made up a point system for different health metrics. So blood pressure, for example, a very important thing in health, blood pressure, and they looked at studies. How do vegans do, vegetarians do, meat eaters do on blood pressure? The vegans do the best, the vegetarians the second best, the meat eaters the worst. Okay, we'll give the vegans 3 points. They looked at longevity. Oh, the vegans do the best. Okay, we'll give the vegans 2.5 points. They looked at diabetes. The vegans do better than the meat eaters on that. We'll give the vegans 3 points. They looked at cancer. Once again, the vegans did better than the meat eaters. 1 point to the vegans. And then they created a category called ease of use. What does that mean, ease of use? It means when you go to Thanksgiving dinner with your relatives, what's easier, eating the turkey or bringing a veggie burger? It's much easier to eat the turkey. When you go to a July 4th barbecue and they're grilling hot dogs, what's easier to do? Have the hot dogs or you bring some grilled corn? It's easier to have the hot dogs that everyone else is eating. Ease of use, let's give that to the meat eaters and we'll give them 47 points for that. So that was 47 points and all the other things added up to 12 points. Continue meat consumption. That was the insanity. That was in a professional medical journal. Total insanity. And they took a vote. They had 12 co-authors. They took a vote, and 9 of them voted to support this insanity, and 3 of them said, "Come on, you got to be kidding!" And 3 of them voted against it. But the vote was 9-3. So nutrition is a democracy. 9-3. Continue meat consumption. That's the level of foolishness that you deal with when you hear of any study that supposedly supports meat.
So you're talking about the editorial board, right?
It was a study published in the journal.
Yeah.
The editorial board, I assume, are the people who accepted it into the journal.
Did you ever hear that?
I think within the study, it was a vote, if I'm not mistaken, of 9-3. Maybe it was the editorial board. Maybe I'm wrong. But I thought it was a study. I thought within the co-authors of the study, some of them disagreed with the conclusion, but got outvoted. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was the editorial. I don't know.
Did the Annals of Internal Medicine or the American College of Physicians ever come clean on this or comment about their role or their judgment in publishing this?
Not as far as I know.
Good grief. Oh my goodness. Well, there was just a study through the Global Burden of Disease project that was released yesterday showing that for every hot dog you eat, it takes 36 minutes off your life. So that came from the Global Burden of Disease study. And it was on CNN yesterday. They were talking about it and had it on the CNN app. Every hot dog, 36 minutes off your life. And then really extrapolate that to all processed meats, a certain amount of time off your life. But eating fruits and vegetables added minutes to your life. So I thought that was really interesting. I need to pull up the whole thing.
I guess they can come up with figures like that by averaging things out. But the way I would think of it is this way. It's a known carcinogen. These processed meats are known carcinogens. So if you get cancer from it, it's going to, it could be reducing your lifespan by 30 years.
Right.
So it's just the worst thing you could possibly eat.
Exactly. Yeah, I think of all the hierarchy of bad things, processed meats would be at the top. So very, very bad.
Let me ask Brian a question.
Yeah, please.
And I talk about this in Own Your Health. When you told me how you came to this diet, it was after seeing Forks Over Knives.
Yes.
And I've met many other people who've had their health improved by seeing forks over knives and going plant-based or vegan. But you were already a doctor.
Right.
And so when you look back on it, your training in medical school, how much time was spent discussing nutrition?
Yeah. So look, it was close to zero, and when we did get it, it was fairly technical and didn't really give you life guidance, I don't think. But I'm not one of the people that bashes medical school for that. Medical school lays a foundation, and it's a broad foundation. I came out with the basic concepts to know about doing an appendectomy, but I did not come out ready to do an appendectomy. So I understand what an appendectomy is all about, but I wasn't ready to do it when I graduated. Now, I feel like medical school did lay a really good foundation for me to understand what's going on in the body. Once I started consuming information after medical school, I was able to pretty quickly, and I'd love to think fairly thoroughly, at least I've got a cohesive idea of what's going on in the body when somebody eats meat, cheese, dairy, eggs, as opposed to fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. I feel like medical school did a good job of laying that foundation. Just like somebody that went on to do surgery, they didn't come out of medical school ready to remove an appendix, but the foundation was laid for them to get ready to remove an appendix in their further training. So, I would love for this to be taught in detail in medical school, but there's a lot that goes into that foundation. It would have to crowd something else out. I'm not saying that it shouldn't. I think these things are important enough and powerful enough that it should. But at least when I went through, the evidence wasn't there to support it having a more prominent place, at least not as far as I know. I mean, to me, that it's really been in the years since I graduated, especially since the China study came out and all these studies after the China study came out that supported its findings. I think that's where this has risen in prominence. The level of proof has gotten high enough that, maybe now it belongs.
Yeah. I think it does, because if you go to medical school for 3 years, and then you do an internship for a year? 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years of medical school, and then 3 to 7 years of residency, depending on what you're doing.
So you go to medical school for that long, and it costs that much money. And if nutrition isn't talked about, to me, that sends a message that it couldn't possibly be that important.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't matter too much whether your patient is eating hot dogs or fruit and vegetables, because if it did, we would have mentioned it along the way, right?
Well, I think the content of a medical education is, it's a big ship, and it'll take a while for it to turn. And, back when I went through, is all about, what medicine you use for this, what medicine you use for that. Now, I'm not sure if the truth that's in the science about a plant-based diet, is that going to successfully elbow out, make some time for itself in a medical education when, a lot of the money that funds these institutions is from drug studies and the pharmaceutical industry. They're going to want all of their time.
Exactly. So, I mean, you can see that it clearly, there's a disconnect in medical education and the importance of our diet. When you have somebody in the hospital and they've just had open heart surgery, and the next morning they bring them breakfast and it's bacon and eggs. I mean, like, that's kind of insanity right there. But, if they could at least start offering people a healthier option, and, I think maybe some people would take the healthier option, but it gives people the idea that somehow, bacon and eggs is good for you. The hospital gave it to me. Yeah.
But look, I mean, the hospitals are in the business of staying in business, and that is not easy. I mean, it's not falling off a log for them. And there's good
Yeah.
intended people there, I think.
Right. But yeah, I think it would be nice. That's something that Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is working on, is getting hospitals to start offering actual healthy food to patients. So
Yeah. But it's hard because if you're in a town where there's any other hospital, you can't afford to alienate half of your clientele.
right.
I didn't understand that. How would you be alienated?
If you started pushing plant-based foods on people after heart attacks or whatever in the hospital, some people are going to be alienated by that.
Well, they'll just go
some
to the
people
other
are-
hospital.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
go to
I
a
mean,
different hospital.
You get the reputation for being the hospital doing that.
Well, look, if you're a patient, you normally do whatever your doctor tells you to do.
And
Oh,
on
you
what
would
planet?
I think patients sometimes are.
I want to move my practice there.
Sometimes patients.
Actually, I've got a great group of patients. We spend a lot of time teaching and talking, and we have great success.
Doctors tell patients you need a heart bypass. We need to cut open your chest with a bone saw and move a vein from your leg. And they say, "Okay, doctor," right? So you would think that if you're in a hospital after an operation and you're told, eat rice and broccoli, this is what you get, people would eat it,
You would think.
Well, yeah, but I mean, so we're basically where we were 50 years ago with cigarettes, right?
Right.
And, it took a long time to turn that and to get, like you're saying, 4 out of 5 doctors to stop recommending Marlboros or, and to stop having smoking areas in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And and that's a difficult thing to do because you get somebody in there that's in nicotine withdrawal. They're going to be grumpy. They're hard to deal with. But you'll have the same experience with people in there in withdrawal from their fat, their hamburger, their salt, their sweet. You start feeding them healthy in there, they'll get fussy, and they'll also be under stress when they may need that can increase their burden when maybe it's hard to have their burden increased.
I don't think there's smoking sections in hospitals anymore now, though.
Well, that was my point.
But right, and so, but I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a master's level clinical social worker, and I did my internship at the VA at Vanderbilt, which is where I met him at Vanderbilt Medical Center. But I did my internship at the VA, and even my boss, when I would go meet with her in her office, sat there smoking in her office. So every time I had to meet with her, I would bring paper towels with me and just put them over my face and breathe through that. Too bad we weren't having a pandemic. I could have worn a mask, but I just put napkins over my face so I could breathe in her office because I had to go meet with her, and smoking was allowed in the VA hospital. So that doesn't happen anymore. So maybe we'll slowly get to where we don't also serve people food that hurts them, after an open heart surgery, and we give them something that's going to cause more heart disease.
So one of our viewers mentioned that bottom line is everybody is in it to make money.
Well, that's true.
But honestly, my perception of it, my experience of it isn't that it's not so much on the greed side of thing as you have to be in the black to stay in business.
Right.
And the margin for staying in business or being out of business just isn't. It's a really, really thin margin. I've had a healthcare business. I was in private practice for a long time, and that margin was shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So I had to have a big change in my career. What those hospitals are doing and just staying in business is not easy. And I'm very thankful for them keeping their head above water.
Yeah. But it would be nice if they sent the message of at least give people an option of eating something.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
healthier.
That should be the case.
Right. So, they could say, you've just had open heart surgery. You could choose the thing that makes your heart disease come back, or you could choose the oatmeal. Like that is going to, at least give people the option. But anyway. Wait. So I want to show the meatballs because they're getting cold over here. Okay. So I made meatballs. which are from the cookbook. These are from the cookbook. They're the Brittany Giarrutti's Giarrutti family meatballs. They're called Easy Bean Meatballs. You can see them. Oh my goodness, they're really good. So they're delicious. So I really liked them. They were very soft when they went in the oven, and I was kind of afraid they'd be too mushy. They're really good. And then the roasted red pepper sauce that he's pouring out over here. Get a little bowl of it. Okay. So roasted red pepper sauce. That is also.
So you get the roasted red pepper sauce as one of the bonus recipes.
Yeah.
We have a new guest, my wife Joanne.
Hey,
Yes, hey.
hello again. It's good to see you again.
All right. So we have meatballs from the book and the roasted red pepper sauce from the bonus section. There we go. I'm going to let him eat it. Okay, I'll eat it.
You had just a moment there, Brian, and you weren't fast.
Yeah, I know. I had my chance. No, it's really good.
They're really, really good.
But you get the meatball recipe in the book, and you get the roasted red pepper sauce as one of the bonus recipes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, so I hear, we've got our YouTube channel. I hear you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel.
Yes, I'm going to do that.
What's going to be the theme? What are you going to try to approach?
Well, I would love to conduct interviews the way Chef AJ conducts interviews. She's one of the best, I think. I would just love to ask questions of doctors and dietitians and people who are scientists involved in the climate struggle we have, and maybe people from other walks of life too. So I would just enjoy doing it, and I'll see how it goes.
I'll tell you, a big thing I would cheerlead for is to interview and get out there people that are experts in addiction and breaking addiction, because I think the difference is going to be made with individuals. And kind of like I said, that the difference to making diabetes is by making a difference with 15 trillion cells. I think the way to make a difference with the climate is by making a difference with 10 or 100 million people. And if you can make that difference with those people, I think that's our hope. I mean, I'm full of optimism with diabetes, and I think that could fill us with I think that's the way to fulfill our optimism about the climate. Yeah, I love the way your book really turned to an optimistic message, and I think that's a big part of it.
We had a question that just came in from somebody wanting to know, can you buy the book anywhere else besides Amazon? Is there another way to get the book, or do you have to buy it from Amazon?
Right now, it's only available through Amazon.
Okay. Will it ever be available on your...
My last book came out, On Your Health, just on Amazon. And then a publishing company, the book publishing company, picked it up, and now it's available in bookstores and libraries. Okay. So it may go the same route with Food is Climate, but it's much quicker to get a book out just immediately through Amazon. And I didn't feel that the planet had enough. I didn't want to waste a lot of time to try to get this message.
I get that. You got to get the message out quickly. Do you think it would ever be available on your website, or like to
Possibly.
Okay. Which is glenmerzer.com?
glenmerzer.com.
And we could try to have a copy or two available at the Incredible Health Farms booth at our East Chase Farmers Market. Are they going to be there next week, or are they done? They're not done.
Ooh, I'm trying to remember. Farmers Market, Saturday, East Chase. We'll have some.
So we've got a couple copies. We'll try to leave a copy or two at our at that booth at the East Chase Farmers Market. But I'd suggest getting it at Amazon because they're more reliable.
Yeah, I think some people just.
To the extent that I hope people will want to help us get this message out. Right. And whether you like Amazon or not, Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla here.
Right.
So if people buy the book on Amazon, then that helps improve the book's ranking so that it goes in front of more eyeballs, so that more people buy the book on Amazon. And then if you write a review on Amazon, then more people will see that. And so really, Amazon is the way that a book can get attention. And we want the book to get attention in order to change the climate debate. This is the only book out there. If you look at the list, I was looking today, and I think the book was something like number 38 in climatology. But of the top 100 books in climatology, this is the only one that's saying that the climate crisis is being caused by animal agriculture.
Right.
So to the extent that everybody out there listening can buy the book and help move it up so it could be number 1 in climatology, they won't be able to ignore that argument.
Right.
So, Amazon is a way to centralize things and help get the message out, even if we might regret that so many of our dollars are used to send a certain individual into space. But
Yeah, I know. I get it. I get it. But yeah, I mean, that answers the question, but I think hopefully it'll get picked up, so people can buy it in a different way, like at a store or something. That would be good.
But for now, people would be helping by buying the book on Amazon and posting a review on Amazon.
Right. Yep. I get that. Thank you so much, Glenn, for joining us, and your lovely wife joining us tonight. And you can keep asking questions on the video. So if you're watching this after we were live and you're watching the recorded version of it, you can still add questions. We'll see them. And if I don't know the answer, I can email Glenn and ask him. So.
And thanks for going to all this work, Glenn. I mean, to me, you're reaching out to these small YouTube channels. By doing that, you're reaching out to individuals. And I think that's where the answer is.
Right.
Well, thank you, Carolyn and Brian. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
Please subscribe to our channel by clicking our icon
And turn on notifications so that you can get our videos when the fruits and vegetables featured in that video are in season and at their best.
Click at the top left for videos that we have found to be very important.
Click at the bottom right to see one of our featured videos.
See you next time.